Hey everyone, this is Helena, and I'm here with my very good friend and fellow coach, Antia Boyd today. Welcome.
Hey, Helena.
For those of you who aren't familiar with her, she is a dating and relationship coach who helps women magnetize their man, whether they're single and looking to attract their soulmate, or they're in a relationship and they're looking to bring their partner closer than ever. And today I am so excited. This is something I know very little about, so I'm looking forward to learning more about this today along with everyone watching. And that is the hidden factor that really affects that process, whether you're single, dating, or in a relationship. We're going to be sharing something that really, it just affects your energy. It affects the way you relate to people. And I'm so excited to dive in. So Antia, let's just get started with this. What is the hidden factor that affects people so much, whether, no matter where they are in their love life?
Yes, so what are we talking about today is the human design system. And so you might right away say, what the heck is that? I've never heard of that before. So here's the thing. The human design is actually a rather complex system consisting of multiple levels. It consists of the Kabbalah, the I Ching, 64 hexagram, also the 7 chakra system, and lastly, also astrology. So rather complex, which is why I'm so passionate about it, right? Because Helena and I, we talked before, why human design? Why not Myers-Briggs or Enneagram? Or, I'm sure you get questions about this all the time, Helena, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just had a question yesterday on my video I'd done with my partner, Tom, saying, can the two of you do your, I think it was your Myers-Briggs and do a video on this? And so we were chatting about that. And yeah, why is it that you choose this system over some of the others out there?
After studying personality psychology at UC Berkeley and being really familiar with all the different systems, including Enneagram, I always felt like it wasn't complex enough. It didn't really address all the different concerns. How do we actually make decisions? How do we actually manifest? And hello, can we actually address more that we are much more dynamic than we are stagnant? Most systems, if not pretty much all systems, are not really dynamic at all. They just put you in a box and then that's it. There's not a lot of room to move within. And it still doesn't tell me why I still don't have my man, or why I still can't trust myself, or why I'm always forget who I am when I'm in the presence of another person. Human design answers all of that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to dive into this. And I'm just going to kind of let you lead this one because this is something I really know next to nothing about. So I'm excited. I know you have some diagrams and things you're going to put on the screen, which I'm really, really looking forward to, diving into this. So I'll just let you kind of take over here. What's the first thing you want to share? I mean, I know there's different categories, right? And also before we get started, how can people get their own human design chart or analysis?
Yes. So you can click the link below and take my human design and love quiz and assessment. And and then we go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll put that in the first link and also throw it into the comment section if I can. So everyone can go do that at any time during this. Go take the quiz and then they can get the results, bring it back to this video, and then we can talk a little bit about that. Also, if you have any more requests for maybe a live stream on this or how these things work together, like if you're in a relationship, how, your human design and your partners work together, we'd love to talk some more about this. But for this video, Antia, let's get started. What's the first thing you want to share?
Yes. So like I said before, there's many different levels to human design. And so what we're going to talk about today is the types. And then we're also going to talk about the centers. The reason why I use those two levels, because they are really the most relevant when it comes to why are you struggling in dating, right? Like, why is it not coming together, right? Why do you always give all your power away when another person is there? So let's go ahead and get the party started here. And so for this particular purpose, I have a little bit of a diagram here. So those are the 4 main types of the human design. So there's the generator, then there's the projector, then there's the manifestor, and then there's the reflector. Now, for example, Helena is a manifesting generator. So there is the subtype of a generator is the manifesting generator. So she basically has the best of both worlds. In case you couldn't tell, she's not fabulous for no reason, ladies, right?
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I actually don't even know much about, what it means to be a manifesting generator. So I'm looking forward to that too. And you're a generator, right? If I remember correctly.
I'm a generator and so is my husband. Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I want to just talk a little bit about that, because that will help you to make a little more sense of who you are. What happens is with the thousands of single women that I've worked with all over the world, every time when I do a human design reading with them, things start to fall into place. Oh, that's why I always forget what I wanted to say, you know, after I'm in the presence of this other person. Or this is why, you know, I feel like I'm leaning more back when I'm on a date, or I'm leaning forward more, or whatever the case may be, right? So so first we're going to start with the generator, which is the highest population. So around 66% of the population is the generator. And, you know, one thing that my mentor told me is like, it's basically saying, tell me what to do and I'll do it. The generators are the builders, right? They can just go and go and go. You know, I mean, I can do like, I can work like 80, 90 hours a week, no problem. So it's sort of like the energizer bunny. And I will explain a little bit more how this connects with the centers as well when we get there. But what we want to focus on right now is what's called the aura. So every single type has a different aura. So the generator has a very attractive aura. So you can feel like for Helena, like very attractive, right? Like you want to like, I want to listen to her. She's very warm, inviting, right? And I want to respond. So there's like this engaging energy to her, right? So the generator responds to the environment, right? So it gets like some intake from another person that says, oh, that reminds me of what I wanted to share was this and that, right? So with a generator, you have like this sort of back and forth, this very nice flow of energy going. Or with the manifesting generators, because there's subtypes of the generators, right? So very, very interesting. So very attractive. And I'm going to tell you in a moment also how that relates to how you bring in your man. So then we're going to go to the projectors. So the projectors, they're more like lighthouses. So I always tell them when I have a projector woman working with me and she's like, well, how do I bring in my man? Or how do I bring him closer? Right? It's like, well, you have to like really sort of like bring him in. Like you can't really initiate, but you can enhance your energy, right? So for you, like a lot of work around energy being like visible, visualizing different colors. So let's say you walk into a room and you want to attract, let's say, I don't know, this guy in the right-hand corner or whatever, right? Like for you, you could literally like visualize as if you have a field around you that's like green or blue or whatever your favorite color is, and that touches him. So it's a little bit more energetic for the projector. In general, of course, it depends on what centers they have, what their profile is and so on, right? But we're just going in general here right now. Also, what the projector has to keep in mind, that they're sometimes absorbing the energy from other people. So also good idea to be mindful, who am I surrounding myself with, right? So for example, for a projector, I would not necessarily recommend a speed dating event. Because your system may feel so overwhelmed at the end, and I can already feel some nods. You're like, oh, that's me. Okay, you're probably a projector, right? Versus the generator is like, okay, what's next? Where did the other 20 guys, right? Like they can just keep going. So then the manifester is a little different, and it can be actually a little lonely to be a manifestor, because manifestors, they're meant to actually more repel but also impact. So they're a little bit more spiky. So if you think about it this way, the generator is more round, more like welcoming, come on in, right? And the manifestor is like, get out of the way. I have a job to do, right? So they're actually designed to not really be liked. But unfortunately, it can be sad, right? Because if we want to be liked, if we condition, see, this is what I want to talk about too, Helena, is we are being conditioned by our environment. So I cannot tell you how many women I work with live against their design. And they're like, oh, that's why this never works out with men, because I'm a manifestor and I try to be a generator. Well, it's not going to work out. You're not a generator, you're a manifestor. So you may as well speak your truth, be edgy, wear edgy clothes, right? Just really be the expression of your essence. Okay. So another example I want to bring for the manifestor is, so if you visualize a harbor, right? And the manifestor is sort of like that huge yacht, right? And so the other ones are the small boats, the small like wood boats, right? So the manifest has to be a little bit okay that like it goes through and it's going to shake up some boats, and some people will like fall off their boat because it leaves a lot of head waves. That's what the manifestor is. So big energy. And I really invite you to own that, right? Those are the people who are like, I have so much big energy, but I don't want to, I'm afraid of it, right? And then we have the reflectors. And the reflectors are really interesting. So they have no centers defined, which means there is energy that's moving through them. There's no, in that sense, authority inside of them. So if you feel like I'm getting completely lost in a room, by the way, this is under 1% of the population. So there's going to be a really high chance that somebody's going to watch this. Or maybe well, under 1%, right, of your channel is going to be reflector, Helena. And so with the reflectors, it's almost like they have more like an outer authority. It's almost like they're really feeling like what's different, what needs to be different here. So they're actually not about fitting in at all. They're much more about like, what do I need to call out here that's different or that's not different, but it needs to be different. So it's almost like as if they're from another planet. So if you feel like sometimes I feel like I'm from another planet, or you may have found yourself saying that on a date to the guy you're dating, you may be a reflector. You may be a reflector. Okay, any questions so far?
I just have a comment. What I love about this so much, I'm just like getting lost in what you're saying over here. It's like becoming more authentic, becoming more of who you are. You mentioned a lot of people are living against their design. So I can see how just learning some of these things about yourself would help you like live in accordance, like kind of like be in rapport with yourself and be more of who you are. So I'm loving this. I'm loving this. And it sounds like there's different types. Obviously, if I'm the manifesting generator, are there different, how many subtypes are there? We could probably do so many videos on this.
The manifesting generator is the only subtype. But for some reason, it's not in the main categories. So it's the manifesting generator. And basically what it means, and we're going to go into the centers next. So I'll explain it more. But the generator has the sacral center defined, and the manifestor has the throat. And the manifesting generator has the best of both worlds.
Got it. Okay.
Yay. Good for you, Helena.
What percentage of the population is the manifesting generator? I know you mentioned
that's not defined because it's a subtype of the generator.
Got it. Okay.
Unfortunately, we don't have like numbers on that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But I want to go into the centers because this is where it gets really interesting when it comes to decision making, when it comes to being guilt tripped, being more like if you're like afraid of feeling guilty or ashamed or things like that. So what I want to do today, for the purpose of like we don't have like all day, I could train this, you could do a whole week-long training on this. So what only thing we want to look at, so we have all the centers here, all 9 centers, and all we're going to focus on today is what happens when they're defined and what happens when they're undefined. That's all we're looking at today, right? Because that's all, but it's going to bring a lot of aha moments in. So what I want to start with is, and this is like just really basic, just explains a little bit, I'll go more into detail. So we're going to start with the head. And so the head is, of course, and I call it also the crown as well, right? That really gives access to infinite wisdom. So think about it this way. When you have great ideas, right? Like, oh, wow, I just had this intuition, or I just had this idea for this program, or I just had this idea how I'm going to say this to the guy or whatever, right? That's the crown. That's the head, right? That's about inspiration. Now, what's interesting about this here is like when it's defined, right? Like it's really consistent inspiration, but it's much more like from within. So almost like more from your own head. When it's open, it's like you're almost like a channel. Like who knows, anything could come in from your world, right? But it's inconsistent. So every time when a center is defined, it's consistent. That means you can rely on it. Because when something is consistent, I'm like, it's mine. I can own it. I've almost like authority in it, right? I can rely on it that when my inspiration hits, I can trust that, right? But if it's inconsistent, it's like, oh, okay, cool. A lot of inspiration coming in. Let's see what I'm going to do with it. Does that make sense? So you're actually like seeing there's many different centers that are actually taking care that the right information is then being filtered into.
Got it. So for each type that we looked at the 4, right? The 4 types before, is it consistent that like for one type, the head is always open, or how does that work? How does that fit in with each
Okay, why don't
person's
we,
individual?
sure. So for the generator, like I said before, the generator has the sacral, the life force and workforce energy defined. It's consistent. Remember how I was talking before? They're like the Energizer bunnies. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I could just go in and go in and go in. So that's defined, but it's the only thing that's for sure defined. And then depending on the complexity of the person, that's why we're going to have the assessment. And that would then differ, right? But we know for the generators, the sacral is always defined. That means it's consistent life force energy. I don't have to go anywhere else to get that. I get that from myself.
Got it.
As opposed to the projector doesn't have the sacral defined. Okay, so for the projectors, like they need to know when enough is enough. That's why it was so important to know the distinction here, right? And people will already like know, what place they're in. Okay, so then what we're looking at is for the manifester. For the manifester, we know that the throat is defined. However, here's the thing too. For the manifesting generator, we'll actually stay with the manifester. So they have their throat defined, and the throat is about manifestation. It says it even, communication and manifestation, right? Because through the sound of our voice, we're manifesting, right? Like somebody comes to your channel, Helena is like, I love Helena's voice. I love the sound. I love the rhythm. I love the beat or the whatever it is, right? But there's like this resonance there. It's your unique expression into the world, right? Your unique essence. In order to be a manifesting generator, you have to be connected to one of the motors, which is either the spleen. So there needs to be a channel here. So this is way too complex, but I'm just going to say it so that we know also what the manifesting generator is. So again, it's going to have the throat defined, of course, the sacral defined, and the throat needs to be connected to a motor. So this is either here the spleen, the emotions, or the ajna. Okay. So but again, we're going to go more into detail with that. But so far, does that make sense so far? And then the reflector has no definition at all.
Ah, interesting.
No definition at all. So again, they're also completely, no matter what their unique constellation is, they will never have any definition. So no matter what the complexity is of them. Okay. So with a reflector, again, it's really rare. I'm starting to look more at life themes, things like that. So there's like other levels that we're looking at. Okay, so let's go with the ajna. So remember how I said before, you have all this information coming in, but it's infinite. So it's like, what the heck do I do with all of this? It doesn't matter. Like if I don't live in China and I'm not a trader, then maybe what the butter costs in China is not really relevant. If that makes sense, right? It's a great example. So that's why we have the ajna. The ajna is the filter. It's a sorter. It hierarchically structures the information that's coming in. Does that make sense? So it says it's here data processing and storage, right? So again, if it's defined, you can rely on it. If it's not defined, you're really supposed to use your head more as a playground. So don't try to use your head to find answers. You'll have other definitions somewhere in your body where you will get answers from that actually has stronger authority for you. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
I can't stress that enough, Helena. I have so many women who I see all the time. They have no definition in their head, not in their head, not in their ajna. And they go into analysis paralysis. I'm like, what are you doing? You're not going to find the answer. You're not going to find the answer in your head. You have to listen to your gut, or you have to listen to your emotions, depending on what authority they have, right?
Interesting. Wow.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, in general, I would wish that the ajna is defined for people because it's pretty nice. But when it's open, it's just possibility. So you can just dwell in possibility and just not rush to conclusions. We already talked about the throat. Now, here's the other thing about the throat too. The throat informs so in general, every center that's defined informs the environment. So with the throat, if I inform the environment with what I want, so let's say I want to attract the right man for me, right? When I have my throat defined, then I can inform my environment in such a way that I'm on the forefront of someone's mind. Let's say they meet Peter, who is actually my type, and they happen to think of me. Well, what determines that they think of me? The throat is one of them. Have you ever wondered that? Why is that person thinking about this person, but not about me? Well, maybe you don't have your throat defined.
Wow. Interesting.
So I'm basically informing my environment what I want, and then they go out like little ants almost, you know what I mean? Like my little army, and just bring me back what I need. I was bringing that example when Prince Harry and Meghan got introduced to each other, right? Because I was asked, like, why was Meghan on the forefront of this, whatever she was, like she was some sort of marketing or branding expert, something like that. My interest said, well, maybe she has her throat defined. We got to run her human design, but that would be an example. Makes sense?
Yes. Yes. This is all starting to come together for me. Yeah. And I can see how this would be really individualized. So everyone go grab the free, it's free, right? Totally free to take the quiz. And then if they want to book the assessment with you, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then the other piece also is it's about attention, because think about, like, I'm paying attention, right? I'm like, oh, Helena is looking for the right man, or Julie's looking for the right man. I'm giving it attention. So they're getting attention. Now, when it's not defined, you can feel like you want attention. So then what the coaching is, and we don't have too much time to go into the coaching, but it's really becoming more like, I am attention. Does that make sense? Saying more like, I am the drink versus getting a drink. I am the party versus I need to go to the party. So that's the healing work that the person needs to do that has an inconsistent throat.
Okay. It sounds like giving yourself what you need, right? Becoming the essence of what you want rather than searching for it outside of yourself, trying to pull it out of someone else, probably, right?
Right, exactly. And you know what? That's also why comparison and jealousy and all of that, it doesn't work because they have a different design. You know what I mean? Like you may do the same thing that your friend does, who's a manifester, but let's say maybe you're a generator. It's not going to work for you.
Interesting. Wow.
You think about it this way. If you have your throat defined, you have a very piercing, it's like a piercing energy. So like it pierces through other people's agendas and for other people's fields. So they remember you, right? But the generator, not always the case. So that's why never compare yourself to anyone. You don't know what their designs are, right? So I love the throat a lot. I have a lot to say about that, but we're going to move on. So center of self, it says here direction and love. This is the ego. This is about your unique fingerprint in this world, right? Your vibrational fingerprint. Like, what do people feel after you leave? What do you leave them with? Right? Do you feel this feeling like you're just, even like, let's say you go on a date and you're like, I just have this feeling in my heart. There's like an essence that this person left. It makes me feel like happy or, you know, or sad or thoughtful or, right? Like every time when I get off the call with Helena, it's like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like this of like love and warmth. And so that is the center of self. So again, when it's defined, consistent flow, which means always knows who they are, right? So they're really like unchanged in their identity. Versus when you're open, you can like change an identities all the time. Actors are really great examples, right? They can just move from being super outspoken to being like really like quiet and shy and like, you know, different accents, right? So they can take on all kinds of cultures. So that's a little bit more the playground for them is the center of self. In general, one thing to be mindful of, particularly when it comes to dating and romantic relationships, is if your center of self is not defined, you may experience a lot of projection. Meaning when people like you, when men like you, right, they really like you. When they like themselves, when they like themselves, they like you. When they don't like themselves, particularly if you're in a relationship, they will not like you. So unfortunately, that's then the thing, you know what I mean? I have an open self, but the good thing is once you know that, you can be like, okay, that person had like a bad day. It has nothing to do with me. So really important here, you know, to not take it personal. And again, very mindful, potentially also carefully curating your environment. I'm pretty exclusive with who I allow into my energy at this point. So then we're moving on. But do you see how it's really important also in dating too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because we take things so personal all the time, and like, no, maybe this guy just had a bad day. I'd love it to do with you. But you happen to have an open self. So you direct mirror. You're basically a mirror, and every center that's open, you're a mirror. You know, it's just how it is. So then we go into, this is called the will. This is also called the heart center. I also call it the worthiness center, because this center really determines your sense of worthiness. How much do you value yourself, right? And how consistent is it? Do you always value yourself? Or is it inconsistent? Do you feel sometimes you're really confident and really valuable, and other days you feel like I'm not worth anything? That could be because your heart center is open here. Okay. One thing that's really important, particularly when it comes to dating and romantic relationships, is those people that have open hearts can be guilt tripped really easily. As a matter of fact, I would tell you, Helena, an example. I have a really, really powerful client. She's all centers defined except the heart. Mm. And guess what? She's being guilt tripped all over the friggin' place. Right? I'm like, what are you doing? You have all those gifts, you have all those channels. I mean, there's so much more, ladies. We're not going to go into that today, but it's enough to have that open. So just really take that seriously. Do you feel like you're doing something out of guilt? Don't do it. Be mindful. It's because you have an open heart. And even if you don't do it and you still feel the pull, I had a friend who asked me for something, and I knew that I felt the pull because my heart is open, right? And then even after I said no, I still felt the pull. Does that make sense? Because we don't have authority. So we don't have as much consistency in there. But if somebody else has it, they can pull you.
That makes total sense. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever experienced yourself saying, I don't know how I ended up here. I didn't even want to go here. But for some reason, I ended up in this bar with this guy. And I don't even know what happened. Have you ever had that experience?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think most of us can relate to that. Yeah, it's like feeling pulled by someone else's agenda or will or what they want kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. So that's the main reason could be here that the heart is not defined, right? So really be mindful with that. However, the beautiful thing is when it is defined, my husband has it defined, you can just push through. I mean, you can make things happen. It's almost like you're designed to get what you want in this lifetime. Really goes to that degree. Okay, so onto the emotions we go. Emotions. So let's talk about a couple of things with emotions. So for one, some of us are really highly sensitive emotionally. And you know what? We're not treating ourselves as if we're highly emotionally sensitive. We're just allowing everybody in our space. And we take everything personal. Right? And we're like, well, why do I feel sad right now? I just felt happy. It's because your emotions are open, because you're very sensitive and you're not protective of your emotions, right? So when you have your emotions open, you literally have to say, my emotions don't belong to me. And you also have to say, I'm a screen, not a sponge. Right? Like, you know, like, because when you're open, you're a sponge. You're like, oh yeah, Julie, yeah, oh, you're so sad. I'm taking it on, you know, or you're angry. Yes, I'll take all of that on. So it's this whole energy of like, I can handle it. I'll take it on for you kind of feeling, which I know so many can relate to that. So
yeah, or even I would imagine like the collective of what's going on in the world. Is that possible? Something that people can take on if they have that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the more centers they have open, the more they're going to actually live that out in their own system, right?
Wow.
So they can feel the stress, the anxiety, the sadness, the grief, right? All of that, the sense of loss. Absolutely. So what I always recommend here is when it's not defined, it's just really visualize, like almost like as if you have like a circle of like mirrors around you, but the mirror is facing to the outside. So like the energy that's coming in gets reflected right back to whoever sends it to you versus you're taking it on. So you got to be a little bit more protective with that.
Got
as
it.
well. Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense. So much sense. I can see how valuable it would be to know this about yourself too. So I hope everyone takes advantage of that, and click the
Yeah.
link in the description and get your take the free quiz, book your assessment call. I mean,
Mhm.
this is huge.
Yeah, this is so huge, so huge. And I have so many women who like cry on the phone, Helena, when they get that. And they're like, oh, that's why I just like never felt like I fitted in with my family. And I always felt like, I don't know why they always wanted me to be this way, and I'm just not. And right. And so on and so forth. So yeah, we don't have enough time for all of this, but okay. So then, but when it's defined very nice, and you have emotional authority. And so not always, but you definitely have a very strong emotional consistency inside of yourself. And what that means is when you feel happy, you can bring up a whole room into happiness. So if I'm out and about, and let's say the guy that I'm talking to is maybe not having a great day, and I know I have my emotions defined, right? So I'm like, hey, if you were an animal, what would you be and why? Right? I can shift his mood like that. Does that make sense? Because
Yeah.
I'm infiltrating my energy. I'm navigating the core conversation with my emotion, with the emotion that I want to experience in a conversation.
Yeah.
Does that make
So much
sense?
sense. Yes. Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, perfect, awesome. So then really quickly, sacral life force energy, we already talked about that. Consistent energy input. When it's defined, you could just go until the cows come home. Really, like just work. I used to work sometimes even 7 days a week. And my husband and I, we met, we built our business together. Like we were just always working. When it's not defined, it's again the invitation to say, when is enough enough? But don't get lost. Don't say like, oh my God, I'm screwed, it's not defined. No, you can bring in a business partner, your partner, a love partner, like bring somebody in who has it defined, who has that consistent input. Okay, so we'll talk more about partnerships in another video. So really quick then, now we're going to go to the spleen. The spleen is again an indicator of how energetically sensitive you are. So we're actually empathic emotionally, and we're also empathic energetically. So it's very different, because it's almost like the emotions are more in your heart. It's almost more like a watery energy. And the energetic is almost like everywhere. It could be anything. You just feel everything, right? And it's like, it's more energetic. It's not necessarily I feel sad, but it's more like, I feel like a certain energy moving through my body or not, right? Now, what's beautiful here is the spleen helps you to make decisions quickly, right? It's a survival. It's like the center of, what does it say here? Health, time, and intuition. It's instinctual, right? When you have to make split-second decisions, you can't go into your head and decide, what should I do? No, you got to already be running by the time you figure that out, right? So beautiful here, fastest decision-making authority. When this is not defined, you can hang on relationships too long. So this is a little bit, it's like, I need you to survive. Does that make sense? So like, I almost feel like I'm not surviving if this is not defined. Okay. Now quickly moving into, spleen is really wonderful center. And then we're going quickly into the root. This is more about responding to pressures of the world. So again, this is more about if it's open, you feel all the pressures of the world. So Helena was just bringing this great example of like what's going on in the world right now. So if this is open, you would definitely feel it. You would feel but all the stuff is happening. And the beautiful thing is like, when it's defined, you can feel a sense of rootedness in a person. When you just feel like, I can just relax with this person. There's something like they have this capacity to just handle whatever it is that comes their way. That's more the feeling that when somebody has their root defined, and how they manage it is like they have their to-do lists. So that's how they put pressure on themselves. So sometimes pressure can be good because it gets you into motion. Let's go, let's roll, right? So we need pressure to get things done, but at the same time, not have pressure work against us where we go into stress, right? Because there's something called eustress that's really positive, very beneficial. And then there's, of course, that really unhealthy stress. Okay. So depending on what you have to find and what combinations you have, that will then determine, okay, what's your dating experience? You know, who can influence you? Should you stay away from? When should you set boundaries? And by the way, what decisions should you make? What's your authority? Okay. All right. So this is a little bit my presentation here. Helena, any questions so far?
Oh my gosh. I mean, a million questions are popping into my mind. By the way, sorry, Leo's just joining us. You can see him walking around, my cat in the background. He's been joining me for all my interviews today. So I just noticed. Oh my gosh, I can see how not only would it be so important for people to have this information about themselves, but also the like potential partners or their man, right? If they're in a relationship, would you recommend having people, go and take the quiz for someone else as well, like for the person they're dating or like a potential relationship partner?
Yeah, absolutely. And then they can actually overlay it. They can see, okay, oh, I don't have my spleen defined, but oh, they have it defined, or it gets more complex. So I told you already, I'm going to do something for you and Tom, right? We have gates. So there's like gates here and there's gates here. So we'll see also how compatible that is. So you can actually find out a lot when you run the other person's design as well. And not only that, Helena, but you understand them better. You can be like, oh, wow, you're a projector. Let me just, okay, let me just give you a little space, right? How you doing, right? Like, are you in a good space? Or are you already pre-exhausted? Let's do the day tomorrow kind of thing, right?
Amazing. Yeah, I can
better. Mm-hmm.
I can totally see how this would be, oh my gosh, so valuable. I would love to do, I know you ran one for both of us and we're both like the same type or something that's apparently really rare and you've never seen that before. So I'm really excited to learn more about this. We'd love to hear from you guys too. Let us know down below, which one are you? Did you take the quiz? I'll include that in the description right below this video. I'll also add it to the comment section. And I mean, just on a personal note, oh my gosh, if you have the opportunity to book a call, especially a free call with Antia, I have to say, just what was it, like a couple weeks ago, I called her just like crying my eyes out. I'm so happy, literally, like things are going so well for me. I've never been happier, but why am I feeling so much emotional pain right now? Why am I crying? And she, she looked at my chart and I know you saw a few things open, like I'm kind of taking on the kind of the emotions of the collective. And it was really helpful just to know that there's like some things coming up to be healed. And I felt better immediately. I felt even better than I had before the next day. And I've been great since then. But just on a personal note, if you have the opportunity to coach or take a call with Antia, I could not recommend it more. Like that, I mean, you're always so helpful for me personally. And I know all the clients I've referred to you just absolutely love you and your husband Brody too. So yeah, this was amazing. Is there anything else you want to say before we close out? I'd love to do a live stream on this and get more complex, but this was great just to kind of introduce this topic.
It just almost makes me want to cry, because when you get this, it may be like the first time that you feel really seen. And you're like, this is why this didn't work out, but this is why this is working out, right? I can have success in dating. I can have success in life. It's really just about like understanding who am I and who am I not. And it's such a healing experience. It really is.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'm really, really excited to hear from everyone. Let us know down below in the comments. I'd love to just hear from them. I love obviously connecting with the amazing women in my community. I'd love to know, like, which type are you? What did you learn about yourself? What questions you have for Antia? I know you're so great at going in and answering everyone's questions. So I know people are going to have a million questions about this one. And any like topic suggestions for future videos or live streams around this or anything else. I know my community loves you. Thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, be sure to click that link and take the quiz, find out more about yourself, find out how you can actually live a more authentic life and become more of who you are and work with your design, not against it. I love how you put that. So thank you so much for coming on. And thanks to everyone who stayed till the end of this video. Feel free to give it a like, leave us a comment. And feel free to share it around, to anyone that could benefit from this information. So I hope to do this with you again soon. Thank you so much.
Take care. Mwah.